Hello there, welcome to Alyssa Jeans Reviews. This is my review for Netflix's Masters of the Universe Revelation Season 1 Part 2. So Season 1 was split up into two parts. The first part came out back in August, and I reviewed that in a spoiler-free manner. So I will put the link to that at the end of this video. This video is not going to be spoiler-free. This will be filled with spoilers. So, if you have not seen up through the end of Masters of the Universe Revelation Season 1 Part 2, then this is not the video for you. You can go watch my review spoiler-free for Part 1. And I recommend you check it out, especially if you have the nostalgia for the Masters of the Universe as I have. So let me just dive straight into the review, full steam ahead with spoilers. Part 2 was also very strong, like Part 1 was, though I will say that I think it got better at Episode 3. As soon as Evelyn kind of took over, that's when it got better. The first two episodes, when Skeletor was wreaking havoc, my least favorite. In fact, during that time, I was thinking, well, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be as good as Part 1 was. Because, they tried to make Skeletor like a more interesting and complex like villain, and gave him like lines where he's saying like actual complex things, or things that are more than just the typical Skeletor ridiculous lines from the old cartoon, and it doesn't work because the framework of the character that is Skeletor cannot be expanded to include anything that is more interesting and complex than it already was. It's just Skeletor. There's a reason why there's all those memes about Skeletor. Like, you can't make him more than what he is, and any attempt to do so just looked ridiculous. Also, while I'm into critiques, this is actually about the end of the season, but I will also say that He-Man was dumb giving him the power and expecting any other result than what he got. I mean, that was dumb. He-Man is not very smart. Or Adam, I should say. It was really, let's just call him Adam. But that was dumb. So, Skeletor is definitely a big negative, a big red mark on this show. But ultimately, Part 2 ended up being good for the same reasons that Part 1 was good, because it's all about the ladies. It's all about the female characters. It's all about Tila and Evelyn. So I loved both of their story arcs in this part of the season. Maybe Evelyn was turned back at the end a little too easily, but they did establish that in Part 1, so it makes sense. I'm okay with it. The only thing I'm not okay with is not knowing if she brought back Preternia. Is that the name of it? The afterlife? Kind of the scene at the end when she had the long hair sort of looked like maybe she was in Preternia. Was that implying that she brought it back? I hope so, because otherwise, no matter how bad she feels later on, she destroyed the freaking afterlife. Now, when everybody dies, they can't go to Preternia anymore. So hopefully, somehow she was able to restore it, and that's what that scene was at the end, I hope. Otherwise, I'm going to be pissed. If I'm an Eternian and I die and I'm getting to go to the afterlife and I have to go to the Subternia with all those demons and stuff, that's not cool. Well, it's hell, basically. That's just not cool at all. So hopefully she was able to bring that back, and that's what that scene was at the end. But yes, I loved that it ended up being all about the two women. He-Man was sort of a side character, and he even said it himself to Skeletor, which I freaking loved. He-Man's best line of the show when he was like, "It's not about us!" It's like throws Skeletor. You're right. It is not about you. It's not about the two of you. It is about Teela and Evelyn, and they both had really well developed, well earned character arcs. And I love that Teela at the end says to the sorceress, "You know what? Fuck this shit. I'm leaving. I don't care about you. What you did. Things are gonna change. Like it's a new era now." Now the sorceress can leave and the sorceress can keep her attachments. Like, why? Why do we have to do that? That's dumb. Like, I love that Teela did that. And we get a great story for the Teela's friend, whose name I'm forgetting, who was a new character. She was great. Got a few little cameos from Ram Man. I remember having the toy of Ram Man. I forgot completely about Ram Man. And actor cameos, we got Tony Todd was playing the Skeletor wannabe dude, the leader of Hell or whatever, the devil, I don't know, but he looked kind of like Skeletor. I recognized that voice immediately. I'm like, that's Tony Todd. Is he going to do some Star Trek stuff again? Tony Todd should go back and do some more Star Trek stuff. He was so great every time he was on Star Trek. But he has a very recognizable voice, so I recognized it immediately. And was he in part one? Maybe I already talked about this in my part one review. I don't even remember now. Was he in that? I have a feeling I may have already talked about it, but I don't remember. It was a couple months ago. But regardless of whether I talked about it before or not, I still appreciate that Tony Todd is guest appearing in this show, and I want to see him in Star Trek. So I think really this is going to be a short review because I don't have a whole lot else to say other than Skeletor bad, Teela and Evelyn good, and this was the one last thing I'll add is that I appreciate once again Kevin Smith's take on Eternia, on the Masters of the Universe, if you will. It was a much more interesting, much more complex, a deeper level, and we get a deeper look at the magic, at the power. We go way more into detail about what the power is, what it means when Adam says, "I have the power." And we get a little bit philosophical, too. I mean, we go way, way, way deeper than any ridiculous Masters of the Universe cartoon from the 1980s. And I really, really appreciate Kevin Smith adding a layer of complexity to the world that I grew up loving as a little kid. I absolutely love that, and I thank Kevin Smith for putting the show together. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So now I'm going to give my rating for part 2 and for the show as a whole. So I gave part 1 a 9. I'm going to give part 2 an 8 because the first 2 episodes were a little weak in my opinion. The Skeletor of it all was really dumb, so that's why I'm dropping it from the 9 that I gave part 1. But the ending was very, very, very strong, so I still give it an 8. And therefore, I'm giving the overall series, you can do the math almost. Part 1 was a 9, part 2 was an 8. Therefore, parts 1 and 2 combined, season 1 as a whole, is an 8.5. Do your math. It is an 8.5. A really excellent take on a cartoon show that I used to love as a little kid. Still a lot of the elements of that silly cartoon show, but they take it to a new and interesting level and introduce complexities to that world that I could have never imagined could be possible. And the love that it was all about the 2 female characters in the end. Okay, so that is it for my very, very short review on Masters of the Universe Revelation Season 1, Part 2. If you have not already, please subscribe. Check out my review for part 1 if you haven't already, and check out all the other things I do. I'm covering Wheel of Time, Star Trek Discovery, and a lot of great stuff coming up in December. So check out all of that, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Dun, 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 dun.